Welcome to this evening's Muskogee City Council meeting. And the invocation this evening will be by Councilmember Ivory Van, and then join us for the flag salute to follow.
May we bow our heads in a word of prayer, please. Our heavenly gracious Father, this evening, dear Lord, just thank you, Lord, for last week for our revival of our city, One Blood, and thank you for Pastor Daniel Miller of Trinity Baptist Church for putting it together. Lord, we really had a good time. Just, Lord, just thank you for all the many things you do for our city, and just, Lord, just keep giving us knowledge and wisdom to run our city and to make the right decisions. And just bless all the councilmen and the families and all the families that represent Muskogee. For we ask all these blessings in your name for your sake. Amen.
Amen. Please join us for the flag salute. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Present.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston. Here. Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Cale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We'll consider our minutes from the regular session February the 13th and the special call session from February the 21st. Are there additions or corrections to those? And otherwise, we entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item 1 through 4 will be the consent agenda. That's a pretty short consent agenda for tonight. Anyone want to move anything to regular agenda? Entertain a
Move for
motion.
approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments or discussion on consent agenda? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Regular agenda item number 5.
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of an ordinance rezoning the property located at 2300 Chandler Road, more particularly described in the ordinance from R1 Single Family Residential District to C1 Local Commercial District, and if approved, authorize staff to revise the official zoning map of the city to reflect said change or take other necessary action.
Mr. Garvin, and we'll consider ourselves in a public meeting.
Mayor, members of the council, the applicant, Carla and Michael Rice, is requesting approval to rezone 3 lots from the R1 Single Family Residential District to the C1 Local Commercial District. Property is located at 2300 Chandler Road. It's directly west of the Walgreens. It's located on the intersection of Chandler and York. The reason for rezoning the property is to allow it to be developed commercially. They are proposing iCare Muskogee on the property. This request complies with the comprehensive plan and land use map adopted by the City of Muskogee and has been recommended for approval by staff, Planning Commission, and Public Works Committee. Be glad to answer any questions.
No one signed up to speak to this item, so we'll close the public hearing. Does staff or council have any questions or comments for Mr. Garvin?
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 6, please.
Consider approval of an ordinance and joinder agreement amending the employee retirement system defined contribution plan for the city of Muskogee, providing for severability and setting an effective date, or take other necessary action.
Kelly Plunkett.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this ordinance and joinder agreement allow the person holding the position of city clerk effective March the 25th, 2017 to be immediately vested in our OMRF retirement plan. I recommend this approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval. Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Cale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 7, please.
Receive mid-year report from the Muskogee City County Port Authority in accordance with the cooperative agreement with the City of Muskogee and take any necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, the port, through our agreement with them to do industrial economic development,
is obliged to give us 2 reports a year, and they put together a report basically for the calendar year of 16, and they have submitted that. We've distributed a couple of weeks ago, and again as part of this packet, and they are here to make further presentation and answer questions about that if you have any. I believe Marie will take it from here.
Yes. Well, good evening, Mayor, Manager, and councilors. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm hoping to take advantage of a brief City Council meeting and share with you a little bit about some of the activities of our office, particularly over the last year. And so each of you have received a copy of our 2016 activities report, and I hope that you've had a chance to review those. I won't go over those reports in detail, but I do want to share with you some of the highlights from those reports. Many of you have heard me quote some of these statistics before, but I'd like to remind you that in any given year, there are approximately 2,500 companies that are looking to expand or relocate in the U.S. With that, there are approximately 25,000 communities that are vying for those 2,500 projects. A few more stats that maybe I haven't shared with you before that has recently been shared by our Secretary of Commerce is that 75% of those projects that are looking to relocate end up relocating in an urban area. So that means only 25% of those 2,500 projects are actually considering a rural area. And so you're taking that from about 2,500 companies to about 625. Of those 625 companies, 90% of those are companies that have 100 or less employees. And so really for the big projects that you're looking at, we're really looking at about 62 projects a year with about 20,000 communities competing for those 62 projects. So as of course, for this reason, the recruitment of new industries is highly competitive, and the chances of landing that big fish is extremely rare. One of the challenges we face in Oklahoma is our ability to provide ad valorem or property tax exemptions. Like it or not, of course, sometimes providing these incentives to companies is really the only way that you can compete. Muskogee actually became a finalist for a very large project last year. But of course, one of the problems that we had is that the companies, or the communities rather, that we were competing against, those states were able to offer this company, 15 to 20-year property tax abatements. So when we told this company that they could enjoy a 5-year property tax abatement here in Oklahoma, of course, as you can imagine, that meeting almost ended immediately. In order for us to remain competitive and under consideration for this project, we were, and with the blessing of our local tax entities, we were able to create a tax increment finance district, or TIF district, really within record time. And so in addition to providing them a 15-year non-educational property tax abatement beyond what the state was able to offer, we were, and of course, non-educational meaning that our school districts would not be affected. They would still receive their property taxes for those years. The TIF also provided the funding necessary for the development of the infrastructure, so the water, sewer, roads, et cetera. Unfortunately, Muskogee was not selected for that project. However, that TIF district is now created and allows us to a better selling points for promoting that piece of property for future prospects. Because, of course, the competition for recruiting businesses is intense and the successes are few and far between, our office spends the majority of our time working with our existing companies to facilitate their growth and expansion. They say roughly 80% of the new jobs and investment that occur in a community actually occur with existing businesses. And so, as you guys know, I'm very proud of the relationship that our office has with our existing industries. The trust that these companies have given to the trust that these companies have with our office is really unique. And it doesn't happen in most communities, and that's been recognized by numerous partners, at the state level, as well as any consultants that have came in, and most recently the consultant that came in to help facilitate our strategic planning process. So the trust that's been earned in providing, the trust really has came about providing real value to these companies that we work with. So whether it's helping them with something as simple as finding referrals for job openings that they have, to helping them make connections with new customers, to helping them identify and financing and incentive options for their expansion projects, they know if they call our office that they're going to get the help that they need. One example of this assistance can be seen as you drive down 43rd and 45th Street project, or for the 43rd and 45th Streets in Muskogee, and that's going towards Georgia Pacific's facility. it was really, it came about, and of course, maybe some of you have already heard this story and maybe ad nauseum, but of course, this is my opportunity to kind of brag a little bit, so I hope you'll bear with me. We actually do regular calls and visits upon our existing industry, and one of those visits was to Central Mortar and Grout. Central Mortar Grout is a company located on 43rd Street, big blue tall building. It was during this visit that their vice president informed me that they were very unhappy, and of course that really wasn't the words that he chose to use, but those are the words that I'll choose to use today, that they were unhappy with the condition of the road that was in front of their business. As a result, they were unhappy with they were not connected to a gravity-fed sewer line, so they were spending an exorbitant amount of money on issues that they were having with their sewer pumps. And so he went even as far, and of course, I don't know if you realize this or not, but whenever companies are actually looking to locate in a community, they'll oftentimes visit with the existing businesses to actually see what it's really like to do business there. And so he went as far as to tell me that don't ever bring a prospect to me. And so that was a pretty big red flag there. He said he'll tell them exactly what it's like to do business in Muskogee. Beyond that, he said that if he could go back in time, he'd never put his $12 million investment in Muskogee. And so, of course, if our local industries don't see the value of doing business in Muskogee, then how can we expect to make a case for the recruitment of a new company? So with the assistance of the city, specifically Mike Stewart and the Public Works Department and his team, also the Nonprofit Resource Center, and with matching assistance from the City of Muskogee Foundation, we were able to successfully apply for and receive a $1.5 million EDA grant. That funded the $3.2 million project. The project is underway and is expected to be completed within the next few months. And while our companies continue to be patient with the construction process, because of course that gives headaches for anyone, they know that Muskogee is not just providing lip service when we say that we are a business-friendly community. In the case of Central Mortar and Grout, we've turned someone who could have been a complete detriment to our recruiting efforts to one of our biggest advocates. One of the other ways that our office provides value to our existing companies is through our GMMA efforts, and I hope that each of you have had an opportunity to attend one of our GMMA, and I say GMMA, our Greater Muskogee Manufacturers Alliance meetings. If you haven't, please let me know. I'd love for you to join us for one of those meetings. But GMMA was created 9 years ago. It was created in 2008. And it was really to provide a forum for our manufacturers to get together, network, because of course we want them to do business with each other as much as possible. Also gives them an opportunity for advocacy issues on issues that relate to the manufacturing industry. From that have come a number of initiatives, including our new workforce development efforts. And so I think even after 9 years, the participation by our manufacturers in that GMMA group really shows the value that they see in that effort. So some of the meat and potatoes. Last year, 5 of our companies have completed their expansion projects. Those 5 completed expansion projects created 101 new jobs and more than $17 million in new investment in the community. As with our recruitment projects, oftentimes our existing companies want their projects to remain confidential, and of course that can be everything from they don't want their employees to know what's going on to they don't want their competitors to know what's going on. And even the competition for resources internally with companies. And so for that reason, some of them do want to remain confidential. That said, some of the more public announcements that we've had last year included the $12 million investment in a new canning line at Whitlock Packaging. And so that project was a $12 million project and created 43 new jobs. 40 new jobs were added at Bros Post Frame Supply. And Acme Engineering invested $1.5 million in new state-of-the-art fiber optic laser cutters, which I'm told is the first ones in Oklahoma. 2 projects that are nearing completion include the $45 million investment at OI's Brockway Glass Container Plant and a $135 million investment at Georgia Pacific. Both of those projects have been approved for and received funding under our Strategic Investment Program, our Local Industrial Development Incentive Fund. As a reminder, of course, the SIP is a performance-based program, meaning that the company does not receive funding or payment from the incentive until they've completed their investments or added their jobs, and that investment has gone on to the tax rolls, and they have to demonstrate proof that they've actually paid those taxes. And so for this reason, we're always a year behind in knowing the exact figures of their investments. However, last year, we did make 3 incentive payments to those 2 companies for their investments that happened in 2015. So in 2015, we learned that Metals USA invested nearly $1 million. Owens Illinois Brockway Glass invested $43.1 million. And GP invested more than $53 million. So combined, this amounts to more than $97 million in new investment in Muskogee. Everyone always asks me, when are we getting the next Dow tile? That's 2 Dow tiles in 1 year. So these investments are providing new tax revenues for our schools, our library, EMS, health department, and others, while also reaffirming the commitment of those companies to provide long-term employment opportunities for our citizens. In my opinion, of course, the most important yet underrated activity in our office is our workforce development efforts. It's a relatively new effort. You know, we've always kind of done a little bit of workforce stuff, but we've really ramped up this past year. And so with that, of course, you know, without the foresight of developing our next generation of workers, any efforts to grow or attract new manufacturers would not be successful. So we have created our workforce development effort, which we refer to as our Dream It, Do It committee. This committee provides a forum for our manufacturers to get together with our workforce and education partners, and together they are working to develop a pipeline of workers needed by our current, not only our current, but our future industries as well. So this committee has done everything from hosting plant tours and conducting classroom visits with students. I actually just visited with more than 100 students at Hilldale Public Schools last Thursday and Friday. Boy, that's fun. And then also we also do plant tours for teachers and for administrators. What we've learned in doing these plant tours and visiting, particularly with these teachers, is that they are going from the classroom to college and then back into the classroom. And so these teachers are spending the most amount of time with our students, and they have no idea the opportunities or what jobs are available to students whenever they graduate, particularly within manufacturing. In addition to the classroom visits and the plant tours that this committee is doing, they've also put together our first annual Manufacturers Workforce Summit. And also our first STEM Teacher Summer Camp. And so this is the yearly activities that we expect it to continue in the future. Additionally, as a result of some of the discussions that have occurred through our Dream It, Do It committee, Hilldale Public Schools has just launched their new internship program for seniors. Currently, they have about 75 seniors that are now employed at some of our facilities, and a lot of them are employed at our local manufacturers. Fort Gibson is following suit. They are agreeing to watch what Hilldale does, and we've watched some of their pitfalls, but they are moving forward on developing their program, their internship program for their seniors this fall. And so as a result of all these efforts, our students are now seeing some of the career opportunities that are available to them right here in Muskogee after they graduate. And lastly, and I'll wrap this up, our office completed a thorough strategic planning process, which included a wide representation of our community stakeholders, including many of you. And so thank you for your help in participating in those efforts. As a result, we now have a formal strategic plan in place that will serve as a roadmap that includes metrics that we can benchmark ourselves from over the next 3 years. And so, as you can tell, I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to do and the work that we've been able to accomplish over this last year. And I think that we have laid some groundwork necessary to make some big or huge impacts over the next year. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't, of course, I can't do this all by myself. And of course, as you all know, we are one man down. But I do want to introduce some of our other team members. And of course, everyone knows Scott Robinson, our port director, and he is instrumental in our efforts. But also Carrie Keene. And Carrie, if you'll just wave your hand. Carrie is our marketing and research assistant, or manager rather, and she serves as my right hand. And then, of course, I think we've also got Chris Williams, our deputy port director, and Kimbra Scott, our PR and communications manager. And so I do want to thank each of you for your continued support of our efforts over this past year, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are you seeing a recovery from the gas and oil industry that you think there'll be some light at the end of the tunnel in that regard?
Yeah, and so I hope that you've been able to see, I did provide kind of a graphical summary over the last few years. And so you can see in 2016, our projects did start rebounding. We're seeing a lot of new projects for 2017. It's been really impressive. I think that this will be definitely a rebound year.
Good. One of those made the headlines over the weekend
That's exactly right.
in the Muskogee
Yeah.
paper. Questions or comments?
Yeah, I've got a question, maybe a comment. I know the competition to recruit industry is pretty stiff. With our waterways and our highway access, our airport with significant runways, and of course being centrally located in the United States seems to me to be give us a leg up over some anyway. How proactive are we in recruiting industry or identifying industry? And I guess what I mean by that is, I was driving down the road the other day and I thought, we've got that wonderful airport. We've got the highways to get out of town. If we could talk an Amazon or a Walmart internet company to build warehouses and take their product out, we could get a new UPS hub, get a new FedEx hub. They could fly right out of the airport all over the country, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a crazy idea. Maybe it's a good idea. But my point is, I would think that one could identify different industries in the U.S., whether they make laundry detergent or what have you, and kind of research their supply chains and see how they move product across the country or what have you. But are we thinking in terms of being proactive and seeing what people do, and if we could fill a need of theirs that they don't even know is available, really?
Right. So, Councilman Kell, that's a very great point. We over the last few years have ramped up our marketing efforts. Of course, we are seen as very competitive, definitely on the state level, as one of the most competitive communities in Oklahoma. Of course, as you know, Eric Miller with our office was spending a lot of time traveling and marketing and promoting Muskogee. And so what we're going to be doing over this next year is really focusing just on what you said, our supply chain. We have, of course, through our strategic planning process, we also, before that, had completed a target industry analysis and really identifying which of those industries make sense in Muskogee and why. And so now that we know specific industries that are a good fit for Muskogee, identifying those companies within those industries and that make sense with our existing supply chain, and really heavily targeting not only site location consultants, which work with many projects, but also specific companies, as you mentioned.
Good. Yeah, marketing's wonderful, and broad marketing's wonderful, but to study and research somebody's company and then to give a marketing package tailored to them and maybe send one every quarter just to harass them, but it lets you know that you know their company, you know what their what their needs are, and that you're ready to assist them in any way you can.
Couldn't agree more.
Great.
I have a question about workforce development.
You got it.
One of the things that I'm always concerned about is that in our community we may have a large number of people who have the willpower but don't have the skill set to be able to compete with some of the jobs that we may have now to offer, or in the future if we were able to recruit an industry. Is there something we can be doing as a municipality to communicate a message to the broader mass of people that might be applicable to, so that when the job comes, they could have had the opportunity to already prepare themselves for the work in advance of it getting here? Because I know one of the concerns may always be Muskogee may be a good fit for us, but you guys don't have the workforce. Yeah. So I'm wondering, how can we communicate that to the masses to say, let's ramp up your ability with your willpower, so that when the job comes, you'll be in a good situation to be considered for it.
That's right. And so to your note about our workforce and our ability to attract projects because of our workforce, much of our workforce issues is availability. And so they look at Muskogee and they say, oh, you've got a workforce of about 16,000. That's not a whole lot. But what we try to position ourselves is our proximity to Tulsa. That turnpike works both directions. And so as many people are commuting to Tulsa, those people can be commuting from Tulsa as well. And so we really try to play up that as far as our workforce availability. Now, our workforce skill sets, of course, we have one of the most credentialed and acclaimed facilities as far as our workforce efforts go. Indian Capital Technology Center, it's really a premier facility. And so, I think grassroots, if you can promote some of the programs that are being offered, specifically through Indian Capital, and the programs that are available to help fund those educations, through our Eastern Workforce Board and through our workforce offices, schools and churches, and I think that anything that we can do to spread the word that way is something we should all be doing.
And your office is able to help us put something together
Absolutely.
so we can. Thank you. And then on the property management aspect, I want to be certain as a municipality we're doing everything we can to be advocating for things like sewer lines, electricity, making certain that the ground is available. Can we be doing more as a city, or are we doing enough?
We've had this discussion over the years is, the chicken and egg. Do you build the infrastructure, or do you have a plan in place? And what we've learned is that if you've got the plan in place, you know how to get how far that the extensions will need to go, how much money it's going to cost to do that, the timeline needed, and you've got the financing in place, then you're pretty good. So I think that we for the majority of our marketable land in Muskogee, our available industrial areas, we pretty much know what those costs are, and do have within reason some good funding mechanisms in place. And so I hope that answers your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Maria, I have a question and also a statement. I'd like to thank you for last year, November, I believe it was. You took me and Commissioner Kendo, went to tour Georgia Pacific and Dow Tao.
Thank you for participating.
No problem. I hadn't been in Georgia Pacific since 2003. When I walked through the doors, everything that I remember, it was totally, totally different in every building. And I knew that building place pretty well.
Yeah.
It was an experience.
They've invested a lot.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
And my question is, I know you mentioned Hilldale. Now, do you take also the students from Muskogee High? Do you take them out on tours?
Yeah, and so we've done 5 schools thus far. We've done Muskogee Public Schools, Fort Gibson, Hilldale, Braggs, Warner. We've also been in the classrooms at OK, and we're gearing up we've been in the classrooms for all those school districts plus OK Public Schools. And then we're gearing up to do the next plant tours for Haskell Public Schools, and the next classroom visits are going to be scheduled in the near future as well. And so, of course, with that, it takes some time to set all that up. So being a man down, that's kind of hindered our efforts just a tad, but we'll pick that up.
Thank you for the report. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there other comments or questions?
I have a question, and I was listening to your report, and then all at once you said something that kind of caught me, and it kind of left me there for a second, and it made it be a concern. How long was that road in bad repair before we decided to fix it?
Okay, so it's really, I don't know that it's necessarily anyone's to blame. So
I'm not looking for blame. I'm trying to figure out how long it took.
Yeah, so from my understanding, that is an access road. And so from my understanding, those access roads were controlled by the Department of Transportation and then given to the city to deal with. The Central Mortar and Grout facility actually located in Muskogee in 2007. So I think at the time, the access road really was meant for just regular traffic, not industrial grade, light duty traffic. So whenever Central Mortar and Grout and subsequently Glover Construction located on 43rd Street, the road began to deteriorate pretty quickly. And so I would say after 2007 until now.
So we kind of dropped the ball a little bit there too then.
Well,
Did we find, and if I remember right, we put turnouts on them, what they call turnouts, and so it's supposed to make that road last a little longer. I'm just wondering if we should do something more than just asphalt past that point, though. I know it's expensive. It's a shame that one company can kind of hurt us that bad,
That's
but
right.
You're right, though. If I walked up and said, are they not fixing your street or your road out in front of your business, I probably wouldn't put a multi-million-dollar company here.
Right.
I think that as a city, we need to do better to make sure that those roads, we have our roads in order before we start putting people on them.
That's right.
And we should be aware that if they're going to use heavy trucks, we need to make sure they have turnouts or something that's dealing with heavy-duty equipment so we don't run into that again. That's a shame.
And beyond, the opinion of the company itself, we also have to consider the opinions of those customers and suppliers that are coming in and out of their facilities. We talked about supply chain and their ability to recruit maybe some of their suppliers or customers to town. Of course, they see that this is how you take care of your companies.
I would like to point out that I think what Marie's telling us is a success story, that we did see it and have fixed it, and that we hopefully be more proactive moving forward, and that we are presenting a good face
That's
now
exactly right.
to businesses that we're recruiting. And I want to make sure that,
He's a very happy customer.
yeah.
And I'm
Thank
sure
you.
he's happy now, but I was born in a small school, but 10 years is a long time to have a road deteriorating in front of your business. We just need to make sure that we're more proactive, and especially helping our poor, because that is our lifeline to our society. And we just need to make sure that we got the proper roads and the proper drainage and sewers and everything else working out there to make sure that we can move forward with this city. I didn't realize it was that long. I knew that we fixed that issue. I just didn't realize it was 10 years before it was brought to us. Kind of discouraging. I'm done.
Other comments or questions? Do we need a motion to accept the report or just,
No.
No action needed.
Marie, thank you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate
You
your
always do a
your
great
attention.
job with it.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Item number 8.
Consider approval of an economic revitalization and use agreement between the City of Muskogee and Ran No Gas LLC for the purpose of event parking located at the Muskogee Fairgrounds, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, the track out at the fairgrounds has not been in use over the last few years, but in the last fall we were approached by this organization to try and lease parking spaces. We had some informal discussions with them at that time and submitted them an agreement in October. Since then, we've had some discussions, and this last week we finalized an agreement that I think meets the criteria that I think represent what the city needs. We have basically we'll be able to provide the parking at no cost as long as they're holding events out there. But we have an incentive in place to make sure that they're able to, that if they race and are bringing people into town, that is incentivized. They'll have insurance on the property. They will. It is not an agreement that they can transfer without our approval. So we know who we're dealing with, and we're excited about the opportunities that have presented. And I know they had a very busy weekend out at the track. We have the agreement is in your packet. Mr. Tucker, of course, has looked at it extensively, and we recommend its approval.
Well, I'm for one excited because it goes all the way back to the horse and buggy carriage days, and it's racing out there, and it's all the way to the cars. Before I came up here tonight, my brother told me to remind me that I'm not allowed to race out there anymore because I hit everything but the flag man. And ease up, guys.
You're okay with that, right? Randy?
But it's a historic event out there. I mean, it goes, several generations have raced out there, and it's kind of nice to go back out there and have races again. So I'd like to move for approval on this.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there comments or discussion?
I'd like to just ask one question, if you don't mind. Living here all my life, and Ray Rainey, who I worked with for years and years, promoted out at Thunderbird. Just to make sure we got some T's crossed and I's dotted, is there a noise ordinance that we need to be concerned about before we go too much further? I don't want to. I'm excited about this, and I want to do the deal, but where are we as far as?
The city does not. I mean, the city now has a noise ordinance that was adopted with our very most recent zoning code last year. However, since this has been an ongoing process with racing out of there since as long as many people can remember, it's been our opinion of our planning director that is a grandfathered provision in there now. Okay. The only other thing that we have is just our general prohibition against disturbing the peace. Mm-hmm. But again, since that's something that has been going on for decades, I think that would be very hard to be able to prove. The only thing we have noise ordinance with a specific time frame is in the downtown corridor, and that is for loudspeakers.
Okay.
Other than that, we've never had anything that is related to a time for particular abatement of noise. And very recently, within last year, is when we included this new provision within our zoning code. So,
Okay. I just didn't want them to invest a lot of time and effort.
well,
and all of a sudden hit a roadblock.
well, and there's certainly a risk involved because somebody could certainly request some level of district court action for private nuisance and things of that nature that you can't control and that no one can predict
Sure.
what's going to happen. But that's kind of what the ordinance is that the city has in effect with what we can do. And if there are complaints, then of course we can deal with those on a case-by-case basis, but
Okay.
not able to predict what the issues are going to be, really.
All right.
Kind of leading on to that, I'm really excited about the opportunities that it has for the city and really for the opportunities of having racing back in Muskogee. What will the time frames be?
Randy, why don't you come up to the microphone, because you're probably best up to date on what Randy Gass of Rand No Gas LLC. What would be the time frame you think for racing to maybe start?
We're going to try to have things done by 11. Once in a while, things might roll over a little bit later, but for the most part, our total plan all the way around is to be done by 11 o'clock.
When do you anticipate the first races to happen? Are you thinking 60 to 90 days? Or?
I would say, I'm telling everybody at least 90 days. It's going to take 6 weeks for me to get the new lighting here and then have to install it. So we're going to put all new lighting on the racetrack. So it'll be a lot nicer, more lit up. More race car drivers are going to want to come drive on it. So they're already working on the track, already working on the grandstands, cleaning everything up. It's looking great.
Stanley Slater and a few others are already working on Facebook and marketing and getting quite a little bit of feedback and quite a few shares of that information.
Yeah, we got people all the way from Oklahoma City coming and working on it. There's a lot of people all over the place who wants this thing to go.
I just think we need to be really cognizant of time frame. I know it's historic. We want it back. I mean, I want it more than anything else. I mean, but noise is a factor, and it affects the neighborhood, and a lot of people are going to bed, and so I just think we need to be cognizant of the time frame, and we need to make sure, because that's one way of keeping complaints down and making sure we're controlling that.
Okay.
So I think if we address it on the front end, we won't be able to have problems.
Randy, did you all mention the other day that you'd be starting typically an hour earlier than what was normal in past years, or something?
I really don't know the actual time that they used to start in the
About
past.
7 o'clock.
Yeah, is when they started before.
7:30?
7's pretty. We could possibly pull off some 6 o'clocks, but on a Friday, people get off work at 5 and need time to get there. So 7 o'clock's pretty much a standard start time.
Okay.
At some of the other tracks that my son races at, during the summer, we don't start till later in the day, later in the evening. But we're not going to be able to do that here. We're just going to have to go ahead and go. So we'll start at 7 o'clock and run them through and try and get out of there. Because it's better for the fans and everybody to get out. Nobody wants to be there at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, watching racing. They're tired. They want to go home, go to bed too. So the whole goal is to knock it out and have fun and go home.
I mentioned to Randy the other day, I was in John Jeffrey's, got a motorcycle repair shop, and John's got a photograph in front of the grandstands there of one of the first motorcycle racing events on the horse racing track that was there in 1914, and has about 50 motorcycles lined up at the start line.
Wow.
And the stands are literally packed with people. It was amazing. That history goes back a long ways in Muskogee.
Well, thank you, because it's exciting opportunities come back to Muskogee.
Yeah.
But I think if we work together as a team to keep that time down, it'll be much more successful for Muskogee.
Understand?
Mr. Mayor,
Comments or questions?
may I be recognized,
Sure.
Mr. Mayor? Yeah, thank you, Randy. Because like over in that area, I'm always teasing Ron Yates. He's from across the track, and over there in that area. It's towards Midland Valley, and I grew up with all the race cars every day, every Friday night. But I think it started at 8 o'clock, if I'm not
You're
mistaken.
correct. It was 8.
I think it started at 8. We could always tell when it was Friday.
Yes, you could.
But we thank you for investing your time, your money here in our city. And I think the city might give me a car so I can race. I want to race
There you
Ron
go.
Yates.
Well, we might have to put you in one, let you go do it.
I'm just joking now. I'm just joking. I don't want that to get out there
City
now.
council race?
If Ivory's going to drive again, I will drive.
That would sound like a challenge to me.
We need 2 cars now.
There we go.
Well, I can find one.
I turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions? Randy, anything else that you want to say?
I'm good.
Let's go. Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
Appreciate it.
All right. I guess it's time to roll call. Let's do that.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Definitely.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. Let's race. Item number 9.
Consider approval.
Thanks, Randy.
Consider approval of final payment in the amount of $29,663.80 to Gibson Construction LLC for the Fort Gibson Erosion Repair Project, Fort Gibson, Oklahoma, or take other necessary action.
George, are you going to take care of that?
I will try to.
Okay.
Mayor, council, a year ago, we received extensive erosion damage out at the dam during a period of high water release. And some construction was contracted to repair it. Stephen Morton, the water plant superintendent, and myself met with the city inspectors and the contractor and representatives of the Corps out there about 2 weeks ago. And everybody was pleased with the work and would recommend for approval. And I also want to point out that Mr. Bowling, our emergency management manager, was very instrumental in getting us FEMA monies to help cover the expense on this.
Move for approval.
Good.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there comments or discussion?
Again, I'd like to express my appreciation for our staff being conscientious and doing good documentation on this occurring. Without the documentation, this FEMA grant wouldn't be able to be obtained, and we'd been paying for this without getting money from FEMA. So, appreciate the documentation.
We appreciate the help, don't we? Other comments or questions? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 10.
Consider approval of an agreement for engineering services with Holloway, Updike, and Bellin for Main Street corridor improvements or take other necessary action.
George, that was you again, I guess.
Yeah, Mayor, council, we're requesting that the council approve entering to agreement with, for engineering services Holloway to design some corridor work down Main Street between Elgin and Denison. There's some sidewalk work and looking at possibly doing 3-lane or 2-lane, some work in there. I'm kind of new to this project, but I believe Mr. Armstrong is here. He could probably answer some questions if necessary.
Mr. Armstrong.
I'll just give you a little background. Mike called us in one day to discuss a project that has kind of come together because of 3 or 4 things. One being the citizens over there on Main Street would like some sidewalk and street work done. Secondly, the OU group doing the master plan is offering some well-taken advice on how to proceed with this. And you're also working on a signalization project for the viaduct to help traffic there. The reason that comes into play is the intersections are going to require civil work once the signaling is complete. So this ties right into the Main Street corridor, and might as well do it all at one time. And fourthly, probably the most important reason is a Tiger grant that Mike's working on with some others, which is a multimodal federal grant, which he thought this would work good to add to the application and possibly get some match money to actually fund it. The Tiger grant is a large grant, so it could do a lot of things. And so that's where we were. The rush on the project is due to the Tiger grant. The application is due probably April 1st. unknown exactly at this time, which is an aggressive schedule for this. So that's where we are now.
Okay. Do we have questions or comments?
Are you guys prepared to make that deadline?
Yep, I'll have my bed there beside my desk.
Good.
Yep.
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Other comments?
My only question would be funding.
Good.
The funding coming from?
My understanding is part of this will come from street funds and part from the, I believe I forget one of the CIP tax.
But it is all budgeted.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully,
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you very
Item
much.
number 11.
Consider approval of the appointment of Heather Kane to serve on the Chamber of Commerce Committee for Convention and Tourism beginning March 1, 2017, and ending on February 28, 2020, replacing Kevin Egert, or take other necessary action.
Janie Boydston.
Yes, I am putting forth the name of Heather Kane, who is the general manager of the Home 2 Suites by Hilton out on Military Boulevard. And I don't know Miss Kane, but I have read her resume, and she comes highly recommended. She has years of experience in the hotel business and knows about convention and tourism. And I think that she will be a big help to the tourism committee of the chamber, and I move the approval.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Is there comment or question regarding Heather Kane? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, the motion carries. Let me just comment too, by the way, that the Hotel Motel Association is well represented tonight. If you're with the Hotel Motel Association, would you stand? And you all have done a great job in recent and past months of helping us get a Hotel Motel Association that's bringing light to the opportunities that we have here for tourism, and we appreciate your efforts as well. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We did not have anybody sign up to speak. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So we will go to item number 12.
Consider an executive session to discuss and take possible action on the following. Pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss the workers' compensation claim of James Hill, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session.
Move we go into executive session.
We got a motion. Have we got a motion and a second? All right. Any comment or question? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes. We will now consider ourselves going into executive session. If you would please excuse us for a few minutes from the council chamber. We'll now reconvene from our executive session. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bob Coburn.
Here.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Present.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We're accounted for. Mr. Tucker, do you have an idea what an emotion might look like?
Yes, item 12A, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss the workers' compensation claim of James Hill. After being fully briefed on the status of Mr. Hill's injury, I believe an appropriate motion would be for the approval of a settlement of this claim in the amount of $16,957.50.
So move.
Second.
We've got a motion. We've got a second. Is there comment or discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Mayor Coburn.
Yes, and that motion carries, and that concludes our agenda. Thanks for being with us tonight, and Thunderbird Racing, here it comes.
Here it goes.